Flax relies on mycorrhizal root associations for uptake of phosphorus and to maximize yields. Anything that disturbs these associations is going to reduce flax yields. And that could be growing a non-mycorrhizal crop like canola the year before flax, or cultivation. So we wanted to demonstrate that concept here in this trial. Last year we had half of the trial being wheat and the other half being canola. And then half of the wheat and half of the canola were cultivated and the other half was left as standing stubble. And then within each of those four segments, we had increasing rates of phosphorus from 0 to 25 to 50 pounds of P2O5 per acre. Now we're hoping that the canola and cultivated canola is going to be the worst yielding treatment out here, and that increasing rates of phosphorus aren't going to be good enough to compensate for that poor situation. But to be honest, boy, the whole trial looks pretty good out here. I can't really see a lot of differences at the moment. Earlier in the year, I thought I saw a little bit of a phosphorus response in some of the treatments, but we're just going to have to wait until the results are in and analyzed, and we'll see what happened.
Well, I'm happy to report that there were some significant treatment differences. But before I start digging into the data, let me give you some background information. For us here in Yorkton, 2020 and 2021 were drought years. In 2021, the block of wheat and canola that you see here established well, but the canola only yielded 20 bushels per acre, and the wheat may have yielded 30 bushels per acre. As a result, a soil test indicated that we were going into the 2022 season with lots of residual nitrogen in the soil. 104 pounds of nitrogen per acre in the top 24 inches, to be precise. So when I seeded the flax, I decided to put down only 40 pounds of nitrogen per acre. In 2022, we had lots of timely rain, which finally broke the drought for us. Unfortunately, some of that rain came as hail on June 23rd. But the flax was young and tolerated the hail better than most crops, and still managed to produce 35 bushels per acre, on average. Now, let's see what the study found out. Here are the main effects on crop emergence, crop vigor, crop maturity, and finally yield. The flax crop emerged well, averaging 302 plants per meter squared. Neither stubble type, being either wheat or canola, cultivation system, i.e. fall cultivated versus standing stubble, or rate of side-banded phosphorus at seeding had an effect on crop emergence of flax. So, that's good. Emergence was essentially the same for every system. Let's just get rid of that column now. Since flax is highly dependent on mycorrhizal root associations for phosphorus uptake, it was anticipated that flax would perform more poorly when seeded on the stubble of a non-mycorrhizal crop like canola compared to wheat, and when seeded on cultivated land that has disturbed mycorrhizal populations. There was some evidence to support this. Visual ratings of crop vigor taken on June 23rd found the vigor of flax sown on canola stubble was statistically less than flax sown on wheat stubble. In addition, vigor of flax sown on cultivated soil was significantly less than flax sown on standing stubble. Now, while not statistically significant, the yield data mirrored the vigor ratings, as flax was higher yielding when seeded on wheat and when seeded on standing stubble. So let's look at the vigor and yield data for the individual treatment means to find the extremes. If we look at flax with no added phosphorus, you can see vigor rating and yield is significantly lower for flax seeded on cultivated canola stubble versus standing wheat stubble. The benefit of seeding on standing wheat stubble was even greater compared to the cultivated canola when 50 pounds of P2O5 was applied. Perhaps better mycorrhizal root associations in the standing wheat stubble allowed for better uptake of the applied phosphorus. Here's a picture of what these plots looked like on June 23rd. If you look closely, you can see the flax is a little larger and greener in the top row of slides, where the flax has been seeded into standing wheat stubble, compared to the bottom row of slides where flax was seeded into cultivated canola. Increasing the rate of side-banded phosphorus was also expected to increase crop vigor, increase yield, and hasten maturity. While this was observed for flax on the wheat stubble, it was not readily apparent on the canola stubble. Perhaps better mycorrhizal root associations associated with the wheat stubble improved the uptake of applied phosphorus. Increasing rate of side-banded phosphorus was not expected to fully compensate for phosphorus limitations resulting from seeding flax on canola stubble, particularly if the stubble was cultivated. This was also observed in this demonstration, as the high rate of phosphorus on cultivated canola stubble couldn't produce a flax crop equal in yield to flax grown on a standing wheat stubble, with no added phosphorus. This difference was also observed in the vigor rating, taken on June 23rd. All the data discussed so far supports the concept that flax grows better on standing wheat stubble compared to cultivated canola stubble, due to better mycorrhizal root associations, aiding the uptake of phosphorus. While this is likely true, the maturity data suggests there were other factors associated with the wheat stubble that improved yield. In contrast to nitrogen, a phosphorus deficiency will delay maturity, not hasten it. So any factor that decreases mycorrhizal uptake of phosphorus, such as tillage or seeding on stubble of a non-mycorrhizal crop, like canola, should delay maturity. While not statistically significant, cultivation did delay flax maturity as indicated by the percent brown ball ratings taken on September 2nd. The greater the percent of brown balls, the more mature the crop. However, the percent brown balls were significantly higher for flax on canola stubble compared to wheat stubble. Delayed maturity of flax on wheat stubble is the opposite of what was expected. This result suggests that there's something more than improved phosphorus uptake that is increasing flax yield on wheat stubble. Perhaps the better yield of flax grown on wheat stubble was also due to other factors that would also delay maturity, such as higher residual nitrogen, more soil moisture, perhaps better seed bed conditions, or less disease. The differences in stubble type and tillage practice can bring in a number of confounding factors which cannot be controlled. In conclusion, the study successfully demonstrated that flax grows better on wheat stubble compared to canola stubble and on no-till land. The best crop of flax was grown on standing wheat stubble, and the lowest yielding crop was grown on cultivated canola stubble. Flax was more responsive to added phosphorus when grown on standing wheat stubble compared to cultivated canola stubble. Better phosphorus uptake on standing wheat stubble due to better mycorrhizal root associations was likely part of the reason for improved flax yields. But there was something else about the standing wheat stubble, which was also increasing yield and delaying maturity.